Well folks, it is here. The first major trailer for Monster Hunter Wilds has just been dropped at the PlayStation State of Play showcase. And this is following up the initial reveal for the game at the December Game Awards, where we were told to expect more information the following summer. And so, here we are. Perhaps a little bit on the early side. Personally, I was expecting something to be dropped during the Summer Games Fest, but this trailer most certainly marks the first major piece of info since the reveal. And who knows, Capcom might have more stuff planned for the Summer Games events, as this trailer essentially will be kicking off the game's marketing cycle. I do, however, personally hope they don't end up over-marketing the game so we have no surprises on launch, which has unfortunately happened in the past for other Capcom games. But at any rate, we are here for one thing today. The last video I made was a 20-minute analysis of the Monster Hunter Wilds reveal trailer. Today we are going to be doing the same for this one, as there is a whole lot to break down. Maybe this one will be longer, or maybe shorter, because I still need to write my script, but I want this video to be out within a relevant time frame, so it's time to get to work. Hello everybody, this is Liaj, and let's break this trailer down. So I guess we'll start by reviewing the trailer shots in the order they come up. I have a feeling that this analysis will be a bit more straightforward than the reveal trailer, as I focused a lot on speculating about the nature of the game during that video. With most of that out of the way, I can hopefully do a quick pass over this footage, see what dots we can connect, and call it a day. Hopefully. Alright, so hi, this is Liaj from slightly in the future after writing a good amount of these scripts, and I have to interject with some important information. So I, unfortunately, had a bunch of this video written when I learned that there is some additional information about the game already publicly available. Now I probably should have expected this, as it is common to release more detailed information alongside new trailers, but I was sort of tunnel visioned on trying to get this video made as quickly as possible. But here's what I'm gonna try to do. I want to try to keep my script as intact as possible, so a lot of this video will be presented in the context of a blind first-time analysis, but when applicable, I will attempt to interject with official information that includes things like character and monster names. Alright, now let's give this a go. Okay, first shot. It's a sand ship. A ship that is sailing over a sea of sand. In the Monster Hunter universe, this is not a new concept. We were introduced to the sand ship back in Monster Hunter Tri, and they also make an appearance in Monster Hunter 4. These ships were used for traversing an area known as the Great Desert, although in gameplay their main purpose was to provide an arena for fighting a specific type of monster. The massive sand whale elder dragons, Genmoran and Darenmoran. These fights were essentially sieges, similar to the modern Zora Magdaros fight. The ship would be traveling at a fixed speed alongside the monster, while the player would be tasked with firing the onboard siege weapons in an attempt to keep the ship from taking too much damage. Oh, and if you found the Zora fight boring, just know that you had it easy compared to these fights. But anyways, back to the trailer. Compared to the sand ship from the past games, this one doesn't appear to be outfitted for combat. Well, actually, I was gonna say that, but looking very closely, it almost appears like this is a ballista installation on this side part of the boat. We don't get to see any more angles though, so it's hard to confirm. Whether it's this boat or not though, I wouldn't be opposed to see some sort of sandship combat in the game, as long as it can be made more interesting than it's been before. At any rate, this isn't the main focus of the trailer. It's time to start meeting some characters. In this next shot, the fellow to the right is definitely our player character, wearing what is probably the game's baseline hunter armor, giving a friendly greeting to what I assume is some fellow hunters. It's kinda hard to tell in this scene because the lip sync isn't the greatest, but that does sound like our hunter is giving an audible hi. Hi. We also, very importantly, are introduced to what is definitely our feline companion. It shouldn't come as a surprise to see the felines making a return, as they are a series mainstay, but this is the first time we are actually seeing them in Wilds. And yes, the official website for the game does in fact confirm that the felines will be returning in the context of palicos, and we have a nice render of our particular one here. I love the set of gear this one has, which in true feline fashion portrays an exaggerated caricature of a rugged outdoorsy camping kit, which definitely fits the game's overall theme. Now, one other interesting thing I'm noticing in this render is the presence of a scout fly cage on the Palico's hat. In the original reveal, people did notice that the hunter seemed to have a scout fly cage as well. That said, we don't actually see any usage of these scout flies in the trailer, so how they will work remains to be seen, but I wonder if having them both on the hunter and the palico will change their functionality, possibly enhancing them in some way. Anyways, back to the trailer.
As soon as we find a good spot, we can get things set up and ready to go. And then we can get started.
Hi, nice to meet you. So we are now introduced to some of our major characters for the story. Now, originally, I was going to start speculating on the roles these characters would be playing, but well, we have this info already, so I guess I'll just go over that. So this first woman we are meeting is known as Gemma. Gemma? At any rate, we know that she is in fact a smithy, which is a highly important job to us hunters. I foresee paying her many visits in the future. You know, I mean, obviously because I need to have the best gear. It's Monster Hunter, and that's the whole point of the game, certainly. Now this next character we see is Alma, and she is officially confirmed to be our hunter's handler. That means that she is going to be our go-to person to get our quests, and supposedly she will be a source of, quote, valuable support and knowledge. We will cover a few more interactions with her in the trailer, so let's move on for now. And also, thanks to the official website, we have a little bit of context on the setting for this story. We can see that the game will be taking place in what is known as the Forbidden Lands, which is an unexplored region that we have been sent to investigate. Now this doesn't really tell us if the game will fit into any of the locations of the previous games, or even if it is set in the same era as any of the past games. All we know is that at the time this game is taking place, we are exploring somewhere that is yet to be explored. That said, there was some speculation that this game was set in the established New World from Monster Hunter World, which is backed up by the presence of the gear, and notably the Slinger and Scout Flies, used in the New World. Now honestly, whether or not this game fits in with any sort of series lore isn't really that important, but I do think there has been an effort to keep the game world relatively consistent. In terms of preserving consistency, it could then be feasible to imagine that this place is in fact a region of the New World that has not yet been explored. Just kind of fun to think about these things.
This is gonna be great!
You bet.
I hope we find them soon.
In the final part of this opening exchange, we also meet a new character who is known as Nata. This character is simply listed on the website as a mysterious young boy that accompanies you on your journey. That much I think I could figure out. So it definitely seems like this kid is going to be playing an important role in the story. I mean, if the flashbacks and dramatic focus on him didn't make that obvious. Right off the bat, this feels like a greater focus on story compared to any past Monster Hunter game. Now I do have to be honest, I certainly don't play Monster Hunter games for the story, but I'm not necessarily opposed to having an interesting narrative to tie the game together, as long as the gameplay is all where it needs to be. Oh, and it better not completely derail any multiplayer sessions. So anyways, this kid seems important and might just so happen to be the main one looking for the person we are seeking. More on that coming up later in the trailer. Okay, now real quick, let's replay this character interaction because we've got some details to point out. Yankutku plushie. Please be in the game. Please give us the chicken, Capcom. Thank you. Now, another earth-shattering development.
This is gonna be great!
You bet.
The cat is talking. I repeat, the cat is talking. At first I didn't quite believe it. Like when we replay this, the feline's mouth isn't really moving. Well, actually it opens once, so this could be a case of a dub that had a way longer line in English. And yeah, the lip sync is really quite off in this trailer. I do want to give it the benefit of the doubt, however, because for a trailer, it might have been recorded once and dubbed over for different languages. Hopefully the final game would have multiple lip syncs to match the different audios, which I think was the case for World. But yeah, talking cat. It's interesting because it has always been canon that felines can talk, but they would never vocalize words even in the games that had voice acting. I'm gonna need some time to process how I feel about this. And finally, to confirm a thought that I had earlier, our hunter does respond to our cat with a little "you bet."
This is gonna be great!
You bet.
This slipped by me the first few times once again because of the lip sync, but this definitely confirms that our hunter can also talk in cutscenes. How much we will be talking remains to be seen.
Look!
Now, here is our first proper shot of an environment with some monsters. We have a large rolling sand dune that extends to the horizon. Most of the geography here is stuff we saw in the reveal, but we can once again spot some jagged rock formations and the very prominent lightning rods that caused a lot of speculation since the reveal. In the middle, we can see 4 of our mole rat-like predator monsters from the first trailer, one of them carrying a fresh catch. Even from this distance, we can notice one particularly large one with a more orange coloring. These fellows will end up being the stars of our trailer, so we don't need to spend too long analyzing them from this shot. This next shot is that of an oasis. In the reveal, we saw a sort of watering hole area in a more savanna-like zone, while this is a proper oasis in a desert. I do think that from what we've seen at this point, we can identify the desert and the savanna as 2 separate areas. And if we remember a few shots from the reveal, we can kinda see how the desert connects to the savanna, which I think helps suggest all of this existing on one single open map. Okay, actually it is time to interject with some more official website info. We have now learned that this particular region is known as the Windward Plains. But particularly, the description of this area might be hinting at some important developments. It states here that the Windward Plains is the first new hunting locale that we will visit. Now, I don't necessarily think this confirms anything right away, but referring to this region as a single locale that we will be visiting might potentially be shutting down the idea that this game is fully open world. And this might be backed up by the fact that when we do have sweeping shots of the areas, the surrounding desert seems quite vast. If the game were to be fully open world, I might expect to see biome changes visible in the distance. But of course, nothing is confirmed yet. We could even argue that perhaps the vast desert is what we cross to first arrive in the Forbidden Lands, and our first landing zone is the Windward Plains. Maybe the desert serves as a boundary to the map on some sides, but on others we can progress into future areas. Regardless of the answer, I do still think that it will be fair to say that we are going to be looking at the largest game areas to date, as it is in fact confirmed that these plains include both the desert areas and the savanna-like grasslands, plus the addition of these more rocky areas that we will see in more detail later in the trailer. Anyways, we can also see the first appearance of 2 new monsters. We've got the frog bear, and then a new species of raptor monster. We'll get a closer look at both of these later in the trailer, so let's keep moving.
Incredible!
And here's our big money shot, quite similar to the title shot in the reveal trailer. This seems to be the same zone, but viewed from the ground level. Easily visible are the lightning rod pangolin monsters from the reveal trailer, or more specifically the...
I've never heard of a Karachnoth herd this big before.
Karachnoth seems to be the name of this species. Seems to be a pretty fitting name, you know, because of the lightning, I guess. Oh, and we also have a better look at this flying monster that we got the tiniest glimpse of in the reveal. I mentioned in my analysis that I wasn't quite sure if it was a close-up, small flying monster or a distant, large monster. At this point, it does look like it is coming in at about the size of a standard winged drake. From its appearance, it does look similar to a Remabra, with a snake-like head and tail, but I think the tail is a bit on the short side and the coloration seems different, so this is probably a different species.
Incredible! I've never heard of a Karachnoth herd this big before.
One of them's got big spikes on its back.
Cat sounding like me when I made my first analysis video. So anyways, story-wise, we are now traveling with our handler Alma. I'm curious how active a role she will play in the story, like whether or not she will travel with us in gameplay or if she will just be relegated to the camp most of the time like the handler from World. I will say, if the game is going to be leaning harder into story, I hope the NPCs will play a more active role in the story quests. Like, it just felt really weird to have all these moments about overcoming challenges with the help of your friends when none of them are ever present in the gameplay, and instead just talk in your ear via your magical hunter earpiece. But this is something that Sunbreak actually did really well, as they had characters that would actually hunt with you and it led to some pretty dang cool story moments. Now these next few shots are pretty interesting. We will see a shot of an area that morphs into a shot of the same area but all gray and covered in sand. And this is something that was hinted at in the first trailer, but it seems pretty apparent that there will be a mechanic where the landscape can change dynamically, possibly due to the movement of sandstorms. Oh yep, we've got some info on this too. So apparently, every hunting locale will feature an environment with 2 dynamically changing identities. Now that's interesting because this implies that each region will have its own mechanic to change the landscape, or at least I assume it won't be sandstorms in every single area. And the site continues that the environments will swap between being harsh and unforgiving and vibrant and brimming with life. Well, certainly we can see the differences in the environment for this first area. I'm pretty excited to see what they have in store for future environments, as it seems like they're going to be going for this idea of having very striking contrasts, so that opens the door for some really beautiful and varied areas. Taking a closer look at the trailer, this first comparison shot shows the same few monsters we've seen before, but we've got a couple neat things in the next one. Here we have one of these buffalo-like monsters immediately attacked by... is that just a regular crocodile? No, actually if we stop it in the right spot, we can see that this guy has like a big horn on its upper jaw. So that's another neat little small predator monster. I guess you gotta be careful at the water's edge. And finally, in the next dusty shots, we have a better look at the new raptor monsters that we were introduced to earlier. The most striking feature on these guys are their big hooked beaks. Cool guys. And we can even see the tiny little raptors that we could spot in the reveal trailer. I love that the world seems to have been populated with just a ton of little guys. Okay, it's time for things to start heating up. We are now going to be learning more about the mole rat-like monsters that I also likened to Gosharag. And this first little cutscene is pretty interesting. So 2 of these fellas seem to be having a scuffle, but they are quickly put in their place by what we could definitely call the alpha of the bunch. We could notice this earlier, but now it is quite apparent that one of these individuals is substantially larger and more orange than the rest. And it's time for another info drop. The official name of these monsters is Doshaguma. They fall into the Fanged Beast monster classification, and they are rugged, territorial, aggressive, and can be observed in large packs. Yeah, okay, that all sounds about right. And let's take a moment to look at the face of this monster now that we have a good look at it. Notably, I wanted to point out the eyes on these things, or maybe the lack thereof. I got some comments on these monsters' appearances in the last video, and one person suggested that they could potentially be blind like moles. Oh, which is why I was referring to them as mole rats earlier, the rat part being because of the tail. Anyways, these monsters possibly being unable to see very well, if at all, could potentially explain some of their behaviors coming up. Next, we've got a quick shot of our characters hiding from the Doshaguma. And this feels like a scripted story cutscene, but once again, I'm curious how much these story moments will actually overlap with the gameplay.
Now to lead it away from the pack. We'll make for the desert.
Right!
Speaking of which, the next shot has our hunter fleeing the Alpha Doshaguma while being instructed to lead it away from the pack. Wait, is this us talking, or is it just another voice in our ear? At any rate, I do like the idea of perhaps having to do more nuanced tasks like this for story quests instead of straight up kill quests. Or maybe it's just that this is a strategy that any player would want to employ because fighting this monster along with a full pack would be suicidal. Hey, I kinda actually said something like this in my reveal analysis. Perhaps if we wanted to take one of these monsters down, we would need to use some strategy to separate one from the pack, you know, like a hunter. Not bad past me. One more cool thing in this scene is our first confirmed usage of the slinger. The presence of the slinger is something that I missed in my analysis of the reveal trailer, but many other people did notice it. And in this scene, we can see the slinger being used in a brand new way. First, we shoot a hook out of the slinger to grab from a pile of rocks. I was originally wondering if this meant the return of clutch claw functionality, but I had forgotten that the default slinger still functioned as a grappling hook in a few situations. Still, being able to grab items remotely is quite a neat new feature. Who knows what other things we'll be able to do with it. After grabbing some sort of projectile, we then quickly shoot down a hanging piece of rock which perfectly lands in a way to cause one of the chasing monsters to fall over and trip up all the rest of them, which is kinda hilarious. So it's great to see these environmental traps still present, hoping that they will be expanded upon further from World and Rise. Oh, hold on, we've got more info about our slinger too. This version is officially known as the Hook Slinger, and yes, it is indeed capable of gathering materials from a distance. The other interactions mentioned all seem pretty in line with what we've seen.
The sandstorm!
Next up, it's sandstorm time. This scene seems to be in one of the same areas from the reveal, but this time we are running into the sandstorm instead of away from it. At this point, it looks like we have some scripted cutscene content, but somehow a handful of the Doshaguma end up falling into a sinkhole. Hopefully that's a mechanic that we can trigger during gameplay. But through the magic of cutscenes, it seems we have finally succeeded at our objective of separating the alpha from most of its pack. And only one thing comes next.
Now commencing the hunt by order of the guild.
So the weapon that our hunter is carrying is now definitely confirmed to be a greatsword based on these first few attacks. Okay, that was probably obvious to most people, but I just felt like it looked a little bit on the small side. And in fact, we have official confirmation that all 14 weapon types from past games will be making a return. I seem to remember hearing an interview tidbit saying that ever since Monster Hunter Tri reduced the weapon roster, the developers never wanted to have another game that would not include the weapons from the previous entries. But it also does seem like that with our returning weapons, they will all be getting new moves, some of which we get to see later in the trailer. Now, could the game have brand new weapon types? Well, that remains to be seen. In my opinion, I think we might be due for new weapon types since the 5th generation games didn't have any. But I also understand that maintaining the full weapon roster and updating each one to have fresh new functionality is a pretty big task, so we may end up with weapons that essentially feel like new weapons instead. Either way, I'm really excited to see what they have in store. After a few quick action shots, we are now swapping our focus to the big green frog bear monster. We've got some official info for this guy too. Meets Chatacabra. So right off the bat, this name reminds me of another monster, Tetsukabra. And indeed, both of these monsters are of the amphibian classification. However, design-wise, this monster feels quite dissimilar. If we look at the way it is built and how it moves, its skeletal structure actually reminds me of the monster Garangolm. This is backed up both by its strong forearms, but also the fact that it seems like it can take a bipedal stance without too much difficulty. The Tetsukabra, in comparison, has a much lower frame and is built more like an actual frog. A bit more neat info about the Chatacabra is that it supposedly affixes stone to its forelimbs with saliva to power up its attacks, and in fact we can see this in the footage. First, in the cutscene, we see Chatacabra briefly lick its arms, which I would assume keeps them pretty sticky. Next, the Chatacabra licks the ground and we can see where it has spread a bunch of the saliva. And finally, it then rubs its arms all over the ground and we can clearly see all these stones getting stuck to them. Now for one of my favorite scenes in the trailer. After our hunter is unceremoniously bowled over by Chatacabra, our bird mount can be seen rushing to the rescue and in a superfluid motion scoops us up and immediately we are able to start riding. Listening to the audio during this scene, we can notice that the moment our hunter is hit, they let out a whistle sound. This is most likely them calling out to the bird in a request to be picked up. I'm actually reminded of the Wirefall from Rise when seeing this behavior. Essentially, this gives us a way to quickly spring back into the action after being knocked down. But the implementation of this feels a bit better to me when compared to the Wirefall. Like, the wirefall was instant and pretty abusable to make a lot of encounters substantially less dangerous. With this mount call, on the other hand, I could see situations where the mount isn't able to respond immediately, so it might not be something that will always work without fail. Anyways, I absolutely love our bird mount. They are so handsome and swift. So let's actually take a look at some official info about the bird mount. The name of our mount species is Secret, which I'm sure I am pronouncing very wrong. The first piece of info we can see on here is that it has a well-developed sense of smell that allows it to guide us to objectives automatically. This feels similar to how the Raider Ride functioned in World. Unlike the Raider Ride, however, we will most definitely be controlling the mount manually, but I do wonder if we can swap it to autopilot us to our objectives. In addition, it is stated that we can use our slinger and some items while mounted. We saw the slinger functionality already, but it's good to know that actions like healing and sharpening will be possible when mounted as well. And you might be looking at this last bullet point expectantly, but I think it'll be cooler to just show that part in the trailer, coming up shortly. Picking up where we left off, there is one more scene that I wanted to address, where the Chotacabra is being harassed by a pack of the hookbill raptors we saw earlier. Look at how gnarly the mouths are on these guys when they latch on, by the way. I always love to see these types of interactions in these games, and this interaction between a large monster and a pack of small monsters is a new step past the turf wars which previously only happened between two large monsters. And now we are back to focusing on the Doshaguma. In this scene, we can hear our hunter whistling again, and our Secret responds nice and quickly, picking us up super fluidly once again, although this time we aren't really scooped up since we were already on our feet. And here is the big moment. Right here, our hunter stashes their greatsword into the mount's saddlebag and pulls out a heavy bowgun. This is a feature that a lot of people were speculating on, myself included, ever since the reveal trailer showed this same stashed bowgun. And it is official. The website states that we can stash an extra weapon on the Secret's weapon sling, allowing you to switch between two weapons of your choice during hunts. This is definitely an awesome feature, as it could create new strategies that use different weapons for different purposes. Like maybe, for example, using a bowgun to inflict a status like para or sleep before swapping to a greatsword to capitalize on the downtime. But we're not even done yet in the trailer, because right after swapping to the bowgun, our hunter is able to fire it while the mount continues moving. Now that is pretty crazy, combining ranged combat with that level of mobility. Well, it does look like the mount has to slow down considerably once we start firing, so it might not be too overpowered. Still, I foresee bowguns becoming a lot more popular in this game, even if just equipped as a second weapon. We then cut to a shot where our hunter has the greatsword out again, and they are able to perform this stylish dismounting attack. I look forward to seeing all the possible actions the different weapon types will be able to do while mounted. So up until this point, we've seen some awesome things in the trailer so far, but as it turns out, the trailer was saving the best for last. It is finally time to see what our hunter is capable of. As the landscape suddenly turns to its vibrant form and the epic music that I'm assuming might be the game's main theme cuts in, our hunter assumes a unique stance with their greatsword. When we cut back to the action, we can see that the hunter is still holding the greatsword in this stance, but then, right as the Alpha Doshaguma attacks, they release the stance and unleash a new upswing move that is timed to perfectly collide with the Doshaguma's swing. Immediately after putting the monster in its place, our hunter sprints forward towards the reeling Doshaguma to land some follow-up swings. This bit reminds me of the adept style from Monster Hunter Generations, where many weapons would allow the hunter to sprint to close the distance after nimbly evading an attack. Now, we might just have some info about what exactly these new moves are. On the website, we are introduced to a thing called Focus Mode. The first sentence says that Focus Mode allows you to aim your attacks and guard abilities. Okay, that sounds kinda vague. But it continues. You can also use Focus Mode to pinpoint monster weaknesses, which can then be targeted with special new attacks that will deal big damage. So originally, I was sort of thinking that this new ability was something like a counter that would auto-activate upon receiving an attack. Instead, however, it could perhaps be that this mode just allows us to have more control over our attacks, so we can use them more reactively. Like, for this first big hit we do, it didn't look like a counter, but instead that the hunter was able to time their attack to intercept the monster. And this is backed up by the third sentence here, saying that it will make it easier to space yourself and aim your attacks during hunts. I think this potentially sounds extremely cool. In Monster Hunter Rise, it kinda felt like too many weapons came to rely upon moves that were just auto-counters. When in most other games, the spirit of the game generally seemed to be that of understanding monster patterns and maintaining proper spacing. So when I see the site explicitly talking about spacing yourself and pinpointing weaknesses, this gives me a lot of hope that this new mode is being designed to fit right in with the classic hunting experience, while also providing a way for players to easily achieve some extremely flashy moments. So I have learned at this point that my script is much longer than that of the reveal trailer, so this video is going to be a long one. But I think we're almost done, just a few more scenes to go.
I've selected you.
So it looks like the heavy bowgun has a new toy. Not quite sure what this device that is attached to the bowgun is supposed to be, but what I do know is that it goes boom. The Gunlancer in me would be proud. And we've got one more really crazy move from the Greatsword where we just kinda hold the Greatsword while it's lodged in a monster and just start dragging it through them. That is quite brutal. Notably, this move also shows up on the focus mode section of the website, so potentially this is one of those special attacks designed for targeting monster weaknesses. Makes sense to me.
I've selected you as a lead hunter for this expedition.
Thank you, sir.
Oh look, more story. So these characters aren't introduced on the website, but their roles seem pretty obvious. Well, actually, this person who was selected as a lead hunter on the expedition does have their picture on the website under the section for Hunter. So I guess he's a hunter. Who knew? At any rate, from the first story scene, we can most definitely assume that this hunter is someone that we are searching for, and particularly, the first flashback makes it pretty clear that this hunter has a connection to our mystery boy, Nata. But that'll do it for what we know of the story. Let's finish this trailer out.
Thank you, sir.
This final scene has our hunter launching a flare, and we all know what that means. Time to call in some friends. Quick check of our friends to see if there's any interesting gear to be spotted. The first hunter to the left is definitely wielding a hammer. The second one to the right might either have a greatsword or a longsword. It's a bit hard to tell, but we can see them swing it later. Upon snooping on the contents of the weapon slings for the first two hunters, they both seem to have the same heavy bowgun that our original hunter has. The third hunter in the back also has a heavy bowgun as their primary weapon. It looks like something else is in their sling, but I can't make it out. Now we've got something a bit interesting with the armor sets. The first hunter on the left has this wild yellow mane on their armor. I was thinking maybe that this could be the armor of the Doshaguma, but they seemed more brown and orange to me. They also have this really neat helmet that has what almost looks like a crown. We can see it a bit better in this shot. The second hunter's armor also looks pretty neat. The main detail I can make out is the hood, which seems to have what looks like cat ears, which is pretty cute. The third hunter we can barely see in this shot, but they are the most visible right here. This armor looks kind of gravelly. Perhaps it could be related to the Chaltacabra with its gravel-covered arms. And for the grand finale, our main hunter is able to use the greatsword to block a mighty attack, but immediately after this they are thrown into this epic clash holding the greatsword in the monster's mouth and pushing it back with all their might as their teammates are able to wail on the monster. If I haven't said this about enough moments already, I love this. As someone who likes playing a lot of the tankier weapons in Monster Hunter, a fantasy I've always had was being able to stop a monster in its tracks behind my guard in order to protect my teammates while also giving them a valuable opening. This is exactly what I was thinking of. Now, it's just a question of how consistently can this be done in gameplay and whether this is something that all weapons will have access to, or if different weapons will have different actions of this magnitude. But from this point, there is nothing remaining save for the title card. And even this black screen with nothing but the logo still manages to pique my interest. First of all, this initial tone that plays right after the music drops out sounds quite gorgeous. And I love how it almost creates a sort of ripple effect in the logo, causing the ring shapes from the logo to pop in before we hear this sound. This sound almost feels like some sort of mysterious resonance, possibly having some connection to all the ring shapes, both in the logo and the game world. A big focus on a lot of the original speculation was on the nature of both the giant ring structures and the lightning rods in the desert area. One potential idea is that there is something akin to some sort of ancient super advanced technology in the area that will be a major focus of the story. This could explain these interesting sounds, and another thing backing this up, which was pointed out by people after the reveal, was how some of the game's music has been uncharacteristically electronic. So with all this in mind, there is certainly a vibe that there are going to be some mysterious forces at play in the game's story. And there we have it. The game will be coming out sometime in 2025, and I am now more excited than ever. Oh, also cat outfits. Anyways, I think we will be wrapping up our analysis here. There is likely a ton more to pick from this trailer, but of course I wanted to get this video out as soon as possible. Given that it's even longer than my reveal analysis, I'm probably going to be kinda late releasing it. In the interest of not making this video even longer, I think I ought to end the video here, but I have one more check-in to do before getting out of here. So, if you've watched my channel before this video, then hi, it's been a while. Literally the last video I made was my analysis of the reveal trailer, and that was nearly 6 months ago. I had planned to do a few more videos before this one, but I just never got around to them. I still have a few ideas for general Monster Hunter videos that I would like to make, but sometimes it can be pretty hard to get the momentum built up to actually finish them. At any rate, I do definitely want to cover Wilds news whenever it comes up, and I have a feeling that we will start getting more frequent updates on that as we get closer to a release date. If I can find the motivation, I might sneak in some other videos, but if not, hopefully we'll at least get some more Wilds news and I won't be gone for 6 months again. But for now, I must say thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.